You don't need to organize your thoughts. You just need to trust love and click record and see what happens. I'm like, okay, that's what we're doing. So this is... Hello, brave, beautiful, beloved soul friends. I am so excited to share this sacred time. There are these moments where I connect the dots with all the stuff that I've been learning through my Implicit Revelations case study, and it re-blows my mind because of the complex ways that consciousness experiences the neurobiology of this brain-body wiring in the unconscious body-mind, and because of how these complex structures and processes are translated into very simple everyday experiences, like how you encounter smelling a flower. So I'm really excited to dive into this, really excited to share this time with you, and really excited to process and express all this amazing stuff that I've been learning through my Implicit Revelations case study. So, a couple things before we jump in. One, before I clicked record on this video, I'm here with my inner life partner who is experiencing this present moment as I am a space of pure presence and loving awareness, developing attachments with these aspects of consciousness, working to consistently apply these concepts because of the indescribable power that they have, this practice of social self-engagement. Very interesting idea. How do you constantly practice social self-engagement with yourself? Well, it's a concept that developed when there were different people inside of this body while Kristen lived with adaptable consciousness condition. And when you have different people inside of one body, then there's social engagement with other self aspects because they're literally different people. But now I experience life through one fluid state of consciousness, but I'm still practicing social self-engagement through distinction and connection between different self aspects because of the infinite nature of consciousness. And if all of this is like, what are you talking about? What, different people, consciousness, socially engaging with yourself? This is all like, what? A little weird, and I'm not tracking. What are you talking about? I invite you to explore some of my previous creations, and you can find out more in the video description below. My known documentary series shares a whole bunch of amazing stuff, including the journey that's led me to the work that I do, and the ever-expanding Implicit Revelations case study, and Theses number 7 through 10 explore unique orders or unique order of wiring in the neurobiological social engagement system of the unconscious body-mind, often described as structural dissociation, including adaptable consciousness condition, which is a new term that Kristen created to describe an experience of independent states of consciousness, which might be referred to as dissociative identity disorder. So, all that being said, before I clicked record on this video here, I'm here with my inner life partner who is experiencing this present moment, and she was like, okay, I need to organize my thoughts and make sure I know what I'm stepping up here to talk about. And then this like gentle divine voice in the background as I am constantly connecting with a higher intelligence to assist me on this journey of infinite divine miraculous expansion was like, No, you don't. You just need to trust love. That's my little mantra here. I trust love. You don't need to organize your thoughts. You just need to trust love and click record and see what happens. I'm like, okay, that's what we're doing. So this is going to be quite an exploration, and I'm really looking forward to sharing it with you. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here, and thank you for being you. So, thesis number 30 in the Implicit Revelations case study talks about, what does it talk about? What does it talk about? Thesis number 30. What does it talk about? What does it talk about? What does it talk about? Oh yeah, that's what it talks about. The implicit role of self. I knew what it talked about, but I wanted to read you the actual thesis statement. The implicit role of self-associations in the neurobiological social engagement system holds energetic information regarding how the unconscious body-mind recognizes and resonates with its own existence, its own self, and how that uniquely individualized sense of self recognizes and resonates with all components of reality, including people, places, sensations, and objects. Okay, so there's the neurobiological social engagement system. And again, you can dive into my previous work to make more sense of each piece of what I'm talking about here. I'm kind of bringing a lot of different ideas together. So if you want to explore kind of individual stuff so that all of this makes more sense, please do dive into my other work. My known documentary series and Implicit Revelations case study is freely available, along with a wide variety of free gifts to aid the everyday healing journey. And I have lots and lots of content here on YouTube that has ever been growing, building, and expanding upon itself. So please do feel free to explore that stuff to kind of make sense of some of the phrases, the terms I use, and some of the stuff I'm talking about and bringing together here. Okay, so thesis number 30. There's the neurobiological social engagement system that comprises the unconscious body-mind that holds all the information about navigation and how the self experiences automated navigation, which arises in an infinite myriad of ways, including automated thoughts, feelings, and action patterns. The neurobiological social engagement system is comprised of neural wiring from every year of life in relation with a wide variety of specific roles. And each of these roles carries a distinct style of subconscious priority regarding navigation. This is just the backstory. Again, you can dive into these topics in more detailed depth in previous video creations. And so the concept of the neurobiological social engagement system and over a dozen different roles was actually a concept from the polyvagal theory. The polyvagal theory. And then through my Implicit Revelations case study, I discovered a new role called self-associations. And it carries implicit data about how the self associates with the self. Okay, how the self associates with the self. How the self associates with the self. And how the self thus associates with all components of reality. Okay, so imagine that there's wiring in the unconscious body-mind from early childhood, where an aspect of the childhood self or inner child smelled a flower. Say it was a very specific kind of flower, a very certain type of flower. How that neural wiring connects throughout the rest of the neurobiological social engagement system, or the unconscious body-mind, affects how the self smells that type of flower right now. Okay, and that is secondary in relation with how the self associates with the self and how the self in the present moment, or the inner life partner, associates with the childhood self through distinction and connection between self aspects. Okay? Okay. Okay. All right. So every piece of stimulus in our everyday experiences is absorbed and translated through the unconscious body mind, and then neural wiring is activated and then projected, and that energetic information creates the translation of reality. And so when you look at something, literally anything, when you see something, when you hear something, when you smell something, when you taste something, when you touch something, when you feel something, when you feel water in the shower on your skin, when you see a flower or smell a flower, senses, okay, senses. When sensory Hi. We ended up here. Okay. Hi, you. Hey. You're doing great. You're doing just peachy, babe. Every piece of stimulus is translated through the unconscious body-mind. And in any moment, there's a wide variety of stimulus that we're not necessarily aware of, like the air on our skin, or the amount of light in the environment, or different background smells, or stuff in the visual distance that we're not focused on, or background sounds that are maybe way over there, or different stuff that might be happening. Maybe a taste in our mouth from something we ate 30 minutes ago. There might be different sensations that we're not necessarily focused on. But there's lots of stimulus happening in every moment. And in every moment, there's new stimulus. Because even if you're in one place, that stimulus is being absorbed again and again. So it's not just like you're in a moment, you have the stimulus, and there's this continuous experience. There's that same stimulus coming in again and again and again and again and again and again to continue creating the experience of each new moment, okay? As each piece of stimulus is automatically gathered from the atmosphere, it's being translated through all of this information, hundreds of trillions, an unfathomably large number, hundreds of trillions of neural networks, hundreds of trillions, a number bigger than we can consciously even imagine anything of. And this stuff is activating information subconsciously that are experienced directly by parts of consciousness beyond awareness. Parts of consciousness beyond awareness are experiencing subsations, or subconscious sensations, and subceptions, or subconscious perceptions. And these are terms that Kristen introduced in her Liberated Consciousness Healing Journey course, which is one of the many miraculous offerings through KRISTIN'S Consciousness Consultancy, and you can find out more in the video description below. And then for every piece of stimulus coming in, there's dozens, if not hundreds, of activations, because all this information holds abstract energetic intel. And so, for example, if you see a cat, then the stimulus of cat is being gathered, and then the unconscious body mind is like, okay, all right, I'm looking around for any information from any period of life in any sort of context related to a cat. And it's bringing up all this information and then being like, okay, parts of consciousness over here, you're experiencing all this energetic information from related with cats from 20 years ago. And okay, parts of consciousness over here, beyond awareness, you're experiencing all this information abstractly, energetically about cats from 5 years ago. And then there's all of this stuff going on that we don't know about, because approximately 99.08% of inner realities exist and operate beyond awareness. And that's another of my theses developed during the Implicit Revelations case study. So you can find out more about that through my known documentary series, where I share the exploration through video and text of this case study and all the things it's led me to discover as I've been studying myself. And my own experiences in relation with neuroscience and connecting the dots in new ways. Okay. So all the stimulus is coming in, right? It's activating all the stuff in neural wiring, and then subconscious parts are experiencing it beyond awareness, and then some of that information comes up and is interpreted into a present moment experience of a thought or a feeling or a sensation or something that you notice in your personal experience. But you're not just seeing a cat in the present moment, you're actually experiencing the navigation of your unconscious body mind in relation to seeing that cat. And so the moment has, or could potentially have, these little energies from past moments, because past moments created neural wiring that's being activated to navigate this new moment of seeing a cat. So existing is really complex, like, to say the least, okay? So there's all of this stimulus constantly flowing, right? Okay? All this stimulus constantly being activated in our everyday life in every moment, and especially if we're moving a lot, we're in this area, now we're in this area, we're doing this thing, we're around all of these people, depending on how busy or how much you move through life, there could be a massive amount of stimulus. Maybe the day is very simple and you spend most of it alone in one space. There's going to be less stimulus, but there's still stimulus going on, okay? So there's all of this different stimulus, and the unconscious body-mind works really quickly. It operates much faster than we can fathom. And so in every nanosecond, there's new activations of stimulus and new activation of neural intel. And so while we're up here perceiving thoughts and feelings and stuff like that every second, every minute, every 30 seconds, every 5 minutes, we might be aware of a new thing or something like that, just depending on whatever. In that time, though, there's been like a quadrillion things happening beyond awareness, impacting a quadrillion aspects of our consciousness that we might not have direct connection with. So that alone is helpful to keep in mind while navigating life, to bring awareness to our own being and the beings of those around us, to expand our compassion for all beings, including ourselves, and to expand our personal power to be there for parts of ourselves and to hold space when appropriate for other people. Okay. So if you are curious about this whole stimulus coming in, activating information, being projected to parts of consciousness, creating unique experiences, and especially how that might actually manifest through some unique health challenges like OCD or depression, etc., I invite you to explore the Liberated Consciousness Healing Journey course. Kristen spent several years developing a brand new way to understand and heal unconscious body minds using this really incredible diagram that takes really, really, really complex things and brings them into the most beautifully simplistic expression where it can be easily understood and expressed in a very amazing way. And if you're curious about exploring the Liberated Consciousness diagram further for your own personal use or to share, I do enjoy connecting one-on-one through consciousness consultation calls, audio or video, and also offering speaking engagements. And we can dive into the Liberated Consciousness diagram abstractly or very personally and use it in a wide variety of ways to bring understanding and healing to unconscious body minds in a very fresh and exciting fashion. So, stimulus comes in, all these activations in the unconscious body mind. How this neural wiring exists in its content and how the neural wiring is organized in its connectivity affects navigation provided by the unconscious body mind. It all unfolds beyond awareness, impacting trillions of self aspects beyond what we can directly perceive. And it affects our conscious experience from moment to moment. The neural wiring, the big question is what kind of stuff is stored in there and how is that stuff connected? Past moments of unfulfilled attachment needs can create some low vibrational content and or low vibrational connectivity that can then disrupt navigation and or regulation throughout unfolding moments. So, coming back to the original example of smelling a flower, let's say that there is a young child who smells a certain type of flower on a regular basis over a period of a few years during very early childhood, maybe ages 3 through 6 or ages 5 through 7 or something around there. And then there's a grown adult. That childhood self grew up to be this grown adult. How that adult experiences smelling that type of flower now is profoundly, dramatically, and expansively affected by how this neural content was stored and how it connects with all the other stuff leading up to the being that exists now. When there's independent or unique activity in this neural wiring, then there will be disrupted navigation when smelling that flower, and the self-existing now will not be able to fully experience smelling that flower, even if the nose and the brain are actually working properly and effectively. The self in the present moment will not be able to fully experience smelling that flower as it truly smells in that moment if this neural data wasn't stored effectively or it's not connected with the being who exists. And if there's neural data from, very young age connected with this adult over here and there's all this other neural data in between, that's a lot of connections that need to happen for that 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old self to be fully connected with this grown adult experiencing a brand new moment that's never happened before, the inner life partner and the inner child. When that data is not effectively stored and or not fully connected, then navigation is disrupted when smelling that flower. But when the self grows new associations with the self, especially by practicing distinction and connection and loving presence and nurturing internal attachment systems and a process of practicing social self-engagement as one of infinite potentials of how this could unfold, then all that data starts to get reorganized. And the information from smelling that type of flower during those everyday moments for a couple years during early childhood, that information is reorganized in relation to attachment well-being because of all this practice and work done over here to nurture internal attachment systems and to create internal relationships with the self, basically, in a loving fashion. That data starts to get reorganized and is then actually connected in new ways. And then the self who is here now smelling that flower is going to have a completely different experience of smelling that flower because the navigation provided by the unconscious body-mind has changed. Is that mind-blowing or what? Does this blow your mind as much as it blows my mind? Like you go smell a flower, you think you're just smelling a flower. That's not the truth. There's so much more happening. There's so much more happening. So when stimulus comes in, and every nanosecond, there's a lot of stimulus that we're not directly aware of. If I'm here talking, for example, I'm not necessarily focused on the temperature of the air that's touching my skin. I'm not necessarily focused on the background stimulus of what's visually happening over there. I'm not necessarily focused on the sounds that I'm hearing outside, and yet there is all this stimulus being gathered. So in every nanosecond, there's new stimulus coming in. And it's happening faster than we can consciously fathom because it's happening nanoseconds, milliseconds, not just like second, minute, hour. And then there's all these activations because energy in here is stored abstractly. It's not these neat categorical boxes, right? It's very abstract. Cat, yellow, smile, happy. There's all these very abstract concepts and they connect in different ways, and that's kind of how all of this is organized, especially through unconscious, implicit, and emotional and procedural memories. Those are what provide most of the navigation, these unconscious, implicit memories. Very abstract associations. So there's all this stimulus coming in. And then hundreds of trillions of neural networks in the neurobiological social engagement system of the unconscious body-mind, where there's data from every year of life organized in relation with all these different roles carrying their own subconscious priorities regarding navigation, which thus affect regulation. All this data is being activated, and for every piece of stimulus that comes in, there's dozens of activations. So let's say in 5 minutes, there's a lot of nanoseconds in that 5 minutes. And every nanosecond holds maybe 10 different pieces of stimulus, and in every nanosecond, each of those 10 pieces of stimulus is activating, let's say, 30 to 50 pieces of neural wiring. In that 5 minutes, there have been more neural activations trying to provide navigation than we can consciously fathom or comprehend. And aspects of consciousness are directly experiencing that energetic information beyond awareness. Because we all have trillions of aspects of consciousness flowing through hundreds of trillions of neural networks. So existence is like really a complex miracle. And so keeping that in mind is really, really powerful, important, and profound in so many different ways. The automated thoughts, feelings, action patterns, and interpretations of stimulus, people, places, things, objects, sensations, it all depends on the stuff happening in the unconscious body-mind beyond awareness. And it's impacting parts of us beyond what we directly perceive. And depending how connected those parts are, we might be in tune with it, or we might not know about it at all. What is stored in the neural content and how it's connected determines the styles of navigation. And how the self associates with the self in the unconscious body-mind, according to consciousness experiencing neural activity beyond awareness, affects the automated navigation regarding how the self associates with all components of reality, including smelling flowers. And so this is really profound on so many different levels, because we can actually change how the self associates with the self by practicing distinction and connection between self aspects, practicing self-attunement, practicing loving presence, practicing nurturing internal attachment systems, practicing social self-engagement in everyday life. And this process indirectly rewrites and uplifts neural content. This process indirectly rewrites, reorganizes, reconstructs, and reconnects how the neural data is organized. It transforms the neural connectivity in a positive, beneficial way that improves implicit health, expands navigation. It unites aspects of consciousness who are experiencing life beyond direct perception. It improves the regulatory protocols. And then in that process, the self can then experience all components of reality in new ways. And this is what's so profound. Let's say that there's a trigger, for example, and there's a certain smell, sight, or sound that activates disrupted navigation or regulation, to put it lightly. Maybe there's flashbacks or panic attacks or an OCD experience or PTSD experience or bouts of anxiety or depression or, any type of implicit health challenge, basically. Every implicit health challenge, including the ones I mentioned and a wide variety of other ones, they all stem from implicit memories disrupting navigation because of unfulfilled attachment needs. All of them. From different phobias, different stress responses. There's literally hundreds of different types of implicit health challenges that seem very unrelated to each other because they manifest in so many different ways. But all of them can be traced back to implicit memories disrupting navigation because of unfulfilled attachment needs. All of them. Every single one of them. Every single type of implicit health challenge. And that's how Kristin was able to heal over 100 different types of implicit health challenges through the application of this one concept. And you can find out more about this in the video description below. Towards the end, it explains all the ways Thesis number 29 has provided transformation over the years. So, when the self transforms how the self associates with the self by creating a fulfillment of attachment needs for the inner life partner and the inner child from a space of pure presence and loving awareness with distinction and connection between these self aspects, then the entire unconscious body mind changes the way it associates with all components of reality. So if there's a trigger, for example, a certain type of stimulus that comes in and disrupts navigation because it activates this disintegrated wiring from past moments of unfulfilled attachment needs, maybe from last week, maybe from 50 years ago. Instead of trying to work with the trigger and instead of trying to work with those past experiences or memories, the self can actually transform all of it by transforming how the self associates with the self in relation with attachment well-being. And this is where my mirror play with mirror power programs, practices, services, journeys, and techniques come in a miraculous fashion. Mirror play with mirror power, dear inner life partner, helps the present moment self have nurtured internal attachments in that moment, the observational self with the inner life partner, the awareness of self and the present moment experiencer of self. And that's like a 1 to 3 year healing journey program. Mirror play with mirror power, Creative Connections is a 5 to 10 year healing program that dives even deeper. It literally rewrites the entire unconscious body mind in the most profound way. And these concepts are things that Kristin was using before there was a lucid, unified sense of self. And you can find out more about this whole thing in previous creations to find out the journey that's led me to all this work. And then once there was a present lucid self, Kristin created this program and has been using it every day for over a year. And before that, as the concepts were developing again, like I said, she literally used these years ago, but didn't have lucidity. And then came and recreated all of the exact same ideas because all the ideas were still in the neural wiring. There just wasn't connection to them or connection to those parts of the self, long story short. But then she came back and recreated it as a program and has been using it personally every day for over a year. And it has just been continuous transformation. So altogether, I'm about 3 years into this 5 to 10 year healing program, and the transformation is unparalleled, to put it lightly. It's unparalleled, to absolutely put it lightly. It's absolutely unparalleled. And you can find out more in the video description below. There's a lot of information about the program, so you can easily find out if it's a right match for you. You really get a feel for everything that's offered, so you can know if it's what's best for who you are and where you're at. And then my favorite of all time, the Personal Dimensions Mirror Play with Mirror Power Subconscious Unveiling and Transformation Journeys, is the most profound way to transform how the self associates with the self, and thus how the self associates with all components of reality, and reconstruct any regions of neural wiring disrupting navigation or regulation without touching any memory data, any past experiences, or any details of neural wiring. And I'm still in the process of creating a list of all the benefits of this technique, because just when I think I've listed them all, there's like 5 pages of potential benefits, then I'm discovering more and more and more and more and more ways that it provides remarkable transformation in a short period of time while having fun. But one of the infinite possible ways that this technique is transformative in the most profound manner is if there is some type of trigger from stimulus, instead of working with the trigger, instead of working with past memories or experiences, there's just a process of practicing social self-engagement in relation with attachment well-being during the activation of disintegrated neural wiring discovered through my techniques, which is a very complex process I won't go into right here, right now. But there's a way that I use mirrors to explore self-recognition and self-resonance of the face, voice, and body to decipher where the regions are being activated that might be providing that disrupted navigation that comes up when there's that trigger, for example. And so while we find the space of the activation of that, unrelated with the trigger, unrelated with past experiences, so none of that stuff is coming up, it's just activating the regions of neural wiring created from those past experiences, impacting that trigger, but not touching any of that. So we're leaving all the icky stuff out and just focusing on the transforming the underlying causalities in a gentle, fun, loving way, practicing social self-engagement and nurturing internal attachments while those regions are activated. And that's a daily at-home practice after we share a journey and I help discover where these disintegrated regions of neural wiring are and how to transform them. And so there's just like one of the infinite ways that the subconscious unveiling and transformation journeys are so profound. Because if there's a trigger, instead of working with what created it and instead of working with what's causing the disruptions now, all of it can be transformed without touching it. And the journey is much quicker than if you tried to work with the trigger of the past experience. It's still a journey. It doesn't happen immediately, but it is much faster and more effective. And it's a process of having fun and being in loving presence rather than looking at all of the stuff that you don't want. And so instead of transforming this stuff and this stuff, we're just transforming this stuff. If the self transforms how the self associates with the self subconsciously in relation with thriving internal attachment systems, then how the self associates with stimulus and how the self associates with past experiences automatically changes itself without working with any of it and without having to look at any of it. Because sometimes that stuff is hard and you don't want to do that. But it can actually be transformed in a remarkable, effective fashion through these amazing journeys. So bringing it all together here, lots of different stimulus going on in every moment, but how we experience that stimulus depends on how the unconscious body-mind is providing navigation, which depends on the content of neural data from every moment of life that's happened before now, and how it's all connected, and how it's creating an experience for consciousness, which is who we are, because consciousness exists and operates independently of brain-body structures. Most of this wiring is unconscious, so how do you know about it? How do you get to it? How do you figure out what's happening in it? How do you transform it? How do you understand it? And this leads me to my final thought. Drumroll, please. Woo! Thesis number 32 of my Implicit Revelations case study talks about the conclusions of the personal dimensions mirror play with mirror power subconscious unveiling journey. There is a very specific way I've discovered to tell if the unconscious body-mind is fully unified. How do you tell if hundreds of trillions of neural networks have connections with each other? Like, you can't go looking inside the unconscious body-mind and be like, oh, yep, those 500 million neural pathways seem to be joined with those 200 trillion neural pathways. I think we're in good shape. Like, how do you tell if unconscious memories from 2 years old and 5 years old are connected to the unconscious memories from last week, and thus you're effectively experiencing navigation through your unconscious body mind. Like, how could you possibly figure that out? How could you possibly figure that out? How do you look at unconscious memories? How do you look at information from a quadrillion years ago in relation to what's happening now? How on earth is that even possible? So it's important that we explore that, because it does affect navigation and regulation in present and potential moments. How our consciousness experiences everyday stimulus now and in the infinite potentials of now unfolding miraculously depend on the content and connectivity of all this stuff. And past experiences don't actually exist. There's just present neural wiring. But sometimes consciousness doesn't know that. The essence of self might be like, oh, but there's all this past, and I'm actually over here in the past, rather than experiencing a present moment that's never happened before. And so there's so many reasons that this is important, and it's a difficult thing. How do you figure out if unconscious memories in hundreds of trillions of neural networks are fully unified from the first moment that you existed in this body as consciousness to 5 seconds ago? How do you tell if all that stuff's connected and effectively providing navigation and regulation? And so the grand conclusion of the subconscious unveiling journey is not just all the things that I've already shared, where you can discover disintegrated neural wiring, you can explore whether consciousness is unified and experiencing life together, exploring how the self associates with the self, and this how the neurobiological social engagement system is providing navigation and relation with different types of stimulus. Like, there's so many, how, the well-being of internal attachment systems, whether there's independent or unique neural activity providing independent or unique styles of navigation, so many different things. There's also a way to use this technique and this unveiling journey, a very intimate, miraculous, wondrous journey, to decipher how connected the unconscious body-mind is, and thus how connected the parts of self are with each other. There's a specific way using mirrors to decipher whether the unconscious body-mind has connections with all the different hundreds of trillions of neural networks, and whether it's effectively providing navigation and regulation or not. And of course, obviously, this ranges along an infinite spectrum. And the purpose of this is not to be like, oh, your unconscious body-mind isn't integrated. You're out of luck, man. The navigation your experiences is wacky-madoodle. Instead, it's a way to assess the present state of things and then use that information to understand personal experiences that might be happening in maybe some great ways or maybe some difficult ways. And then from that space of awareness, decide how to move forward in whatever direction you desire. If you want there to be improved navigation or regulation, you want there to be increased connection between aspects of self, etc., then there's awareness and tools to do that. And it is a remarkable journey to understand how these hundreds of trillions of neural networks are providing navigation in relation with how the self experiences components of reality based on how it subconsciously associates with its own existence. And so it's just been such an exciting journey to explore and discover and hone in these miracles amazingly. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. Thank you for exploring this with me. I know it's a lot of like, what? But, understanding this stuff is a gift and a blessing, and it's an honor to share. And whether it can help bring awareness to everyday experiences or, whatever this might provide, I'm grateful for the chance to share it and really excited to continue learning and growing. And please do explore my other magical worksness things. You can find out more in the video description below. As I previously mentioned, there's a wide variety of free offerings to uplift and expand your everyday healing journey, including the known documentary series, Implicit Revelations case study, and a wide variety of free gifts, all available on my website, plus all the content here on my YouTube channel. And then I have a wide variety of offerings through KRISTIN'S Consciousness Consultancy, a wide variety of services and creations, from healing journey programs and practices, some that you maybe use for a few months, some you can use up to 5 to 10 years. There's a huge variety, so there's really something for everybody. And healing journey merchandise. So if you don't want to dive deep into a program, maybe just go grab a cup or a mug or a t-shirt. And then lots of different programs, including 2 Mirror Play with Mirror Power programs, and the Liberated Consciousness course, and the Implicit Transformation to transform implicit unconscious memories. There's so much magic, so much magic. And then services. I offer a wide variety of one-on-one and group services through audio calls, video calls, and in-person speaking engagements. And within these services, there's a wide variety of potentials of ways that they can be used. There's so many different topics we can explore from so many different angles for so many different purposes. And if you've been following my work, you will see that there's a theme of implicit memories, attachment well-being, navigation, regulation, consciousness distinction from brain-body wiring, etc. There's so many different ways to dive into these topics and expand the everyday healing journey of life. So if any of these topics interest you and you want to dive deeper, I would love to connect with you one-on-one or in a group video call where there's different people that come together and join me on a video call. We have kind of a little group session. And then there's also in-person speaking engagements. And if you explore that page on my website, if you continue scrolling down, you will see that there is a wide variety of ideas about how this can be utilized, including dozens of consciousness conferences or retreat-styled events, and all the different ways that my different concepts and tools and diagrams and ideas and case study work and implicit revelations and practices and techniques can be used in different settings for different purposes, different lengths of time, different intentions for different groups of people. So please do feel free to explore my work. I would be absolutely honored to dive deeper and share any of this. And one of the really fun things that we can do on video calls, among the hundreds of thousands of possibilities of what we could talk about and dive deeper into, is various ways of using the liberated consciousness diagram to understand personal experiences or experiences of or with others, or to understand abstract stuff, to have greater awareness in everyday life, or to specifically map out a personal experience of the unconscious body-mind. There's so many different ways that these concepts can be utilized. So just lots of magic, and I would just be honored to dive deeper and serve as a healing journey guide in whatever way that might be a best fit for you. And of course, there's always the mirror journey, which is, of course, my favorite and one of the most unique things I have to offer that is very specific to my miraculous journey over these past many years. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being you. Thank you for exploring my work. Thank you for exploring these topics. Thank you for embracing your healing journey. And for those of you who are called to connect with me through my business, thank you so much for choosing me as your healing journey guide. It is an honor and such a blessed privilege, and I am so excited from the bottom of my heart to share all these creations that I've been working on for all these years, and the development of all these ideas to be of service. So thank you so much. I love you all. I'm sending you lots of love and light. I hope you have a beautiful and blessed day. Please do feel free to explore associated content so that some of the stuff I talked about in this video might make more sense. And yeah, I'll catch you in another video creation. Namaste, beloveds. The divine love and light in my miraculous consciousness sees and honors the divine love and light in your miraculous consciousness. Infinite blessings, and I'll see you in another video creation, and I hope you have a beautiful and blessed day. Just a little PS note. I don't necessarily respond to every comment on YouTube. So if you want to connect with me personally, please explore my offerings through KRISTIN'S consciousness consultancy, such as a one-on-one consciousness consultation call. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being you. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.